Hello everyone, happy Valentine's Day. Give a thumbs up if you can hear me. Awesome. Saw a couple of waves. I was looking for a thumbs up, but that's okay. We'll try to make do somehow. It is great to see all you guys here. We got a few people just continuing to join as we go. Couple quick things before we get too far. Throughout the Cookalong, if you feel comfortable to put your camera onto yourself or your cooking area, that's awesome because it helps me gauge how people are doing, how far along you are. And then throughout the Cookalong, I'll do thumbs up, thumbs down to get a sense of if you need more time, if you are with me all the way. So it's a little communication. If you have questions at any point, go ahead and stick them in the chat, and we'll either answer them in the chat. We've got Miss Laura Paul answering questions in the chat, or I'll answer them here. If you, what else? Oh yeah, we're gonna stay on mute. Everyone except me, just the way I like it. Mostly because hearing 75 people all cook at once is cacophony. So yeah, you guys ready to get started? Cool. We're gonna get started, couple quick, just get it moving things, and then we're gonna dive in on our cocktail. So first thing, let's get our oven going to 350, and then let's get a pot about this size. If you have one that's like kind of rounded on the bottom instead of flat on the bottom, that's even better. But I don't, so I'm using this flat bottom one. And we're gonna put 5 cups of water in here. It doesn't have to be exactly 5 cups, but about 5 cups. That's a quart plus 1 more cup. If you have hot water, you might as well use that to get a head start. We're just gonna get that out of boil. Got our water going, got our oven going. I got all my produce here, and before we go over all the produce, why don't we make a cocktail so that we can sip the cocktail while we go over the produce. The cocktail that I'm making today is, yes, we are preheating to 400 degrees, my mistake. Is a play on a gin and tonic. I think gin and tonics are just one of the most delicious cocktails. And I think they're really a blank canvas to do fun things with. And so we are gonna do a gin and tonic that has a couple extra flavors in it. One of them is fresh ginger, which is coming from, in our produce box from Transplanting Traditions. And the other one is pomegranate juice, which is delicious. It's a little bit bitter, which will mimic the bitterness in the tonic, and it also will bring a beautiful Valentine's rosy chic to the cocktail. I am gonna make one cocktail, but the great thing about this recipe is that you can multiply it as much as you want. So you can make as many cocktails as you want just by multiplying the recipe. So for one cocktail, we're just gonna take a mason jar, or if you're doing a larger thing, you can do a pitcher, and just put some ice in there. And then we are going to add some ingredients here. We're gonna add, per cocktail, we're gonna add 2 ounces of gin, which is the same as a 1/4 cup of gin. I am using this gorgeous conniption gin made here in Durham, actually just like a 1/4 mile from where I am right now. We're gonna add a 1/4 cup of pomegranate juice. If you have fresh squeezed, go you. But this beautiful POM refrigerated stuff is great. I was like, should I get a smaller bottle? And I was like, no, I'm gonna drink the rest of that. I'm going for a big boy. So we got our pomegranate juice, we got our gin, and then we're gonna grate some ginger. We're gonna grate some ginger into here as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna snap off a little knob, about like that. And I'm gonna use a spoon to peel it, which I find to be the easiest way to peel ginger. You can use a peeler if you want, but I think it's easier to do through the spoon. And what I'm going to do is I'm holding the spoon here in my hand like this, like I'm making a L with a diagonal spoon across the L. Is that helpful? And then I'm just going to use it against my thumb to peel the ginger. Just like that. You know, when the ginger is fresh in the fall, you can use the skin and all because the skin is really, really tender. But when it's a little bit more woodsy, a little more papery like this, it's nice to peel it off. And then there's a number of different ways you can get ginger into a cocktail. The probably most common way is to make a simple syrup or sort of steep it. I really like the fresh kick of ginger. And so for this cocktail, we're gonna microplane it. If you don't have a microplane, you can just smash the ginger and mince it up really finely. But mincing, I think, microplaning is the easiest way. And so I'm just gonna microplane this. And I'm gonna do, I don't know, about a half a teaspoon or so to start. I can always add more, just like that. You'll also get a little bit of like the ginger pulp in there. No big chunks because we're microplaning, but a little bit of the pulp, which I actually really like as well. So we've got that. And lastly, we're gonna do a little bit of lemon. You know, gin and tonics are traditionally, obviously, made by squeezing lime or having a lime wedge, but I really like how the lemon and the pomegranate and the ginger play together. So I'm going with lemon today. So I'm taking a lemon and I'm just squeezing it over my hand to catch any seeds, like that. We need about a tablespoon per cocktail. So just to go back over those quantities per cocktail, we're doing a 1/4 cup of gin, a 1/4 cup of pomegranate juice, a tablespoon of lemon juice, and about a half to 1 teaspoon of grated ginger. So if you're doing 2 cocktails, that would be half a cup of gin, half a cup of pomegranate juice, a tablespoon or 2 of ginger, and a couple tablespoons of lemon juice. So we've got all that stuff in there, and now we're gonna go ahead and give it a stir. You give it a shake if you want, but I'm gonna give it a stir. I don't like to add the tonic just yet because when you're mixing, you don't want to mix seltzerized, seltzer bubbly things too vigorously to lose the bubbles. You can totally use lime in this drink if you prefer lime to lemon. That would be a little bit more classic. Just like that. Then I'm going to taste it. Again, the cocktail is not done yet. I'm just tasting for ginger relative to the gin and the pomegranate. There should be a little bit of a ginger kick. Not quite enough. I'm going to add a little more. You want to just have a little bit of that ginger heat. I think I'm going for the full teaspoon, but it's good to start a little light. Stir. Taste it again. Oh yeah, perfect. Yum. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we are going to go ahead and pour that in our glass. You can switch out the ice if you want. I don't mind using the ice, but you can top it off with a little more ice if you want. Just like that. And then we're gonna top it with our tonic. Now you can use whatever tonic you want. I'm using this really good tonic called Dangerously Good Tonic, which is made in North Carolina. It's made, I think, in Chapel Hill. It's super good. Really, it's got a lot of really great flavors. It's got grapefruit and lemongrass and anise and black pepper and allspice. And this is a syrup. And so we're gonna add just a little bit of the syrup, and then I'm gonna top it with seltzer. If you have straight tonic water, you can totally use that. So I'm gonna put a little of syrup, stir that in, and then add some water. But I imagine most of you are using straight tonic water, so you're just gonna sort of top off the glass with the tonic water. Just like that. And I'm gonna take the other half, of the lemon, and I'm just gonna get a nice slice out of it, pick out any seeds that might be in there, like that. And then I'm just gonna make a little twirl by twirling the lemon and putting that in. If you had fresh pomegranate, you could put some of the seeds in there as well. And there you have your cocktail. Is that a Valentine's cocktail or what? Oh yeah, delicious. The cocktails, the tonic syrup I'm using is this dangerously good tonic syrup, which is awesome and local. There's lots of tonic syrups like Jack Rudy, which is really good. And you can even make your own tonic syrup, which is one of the most delicious things. Although buying this is just about the closest thing to making your own. So there we go. We got our cocktail. How we doing? How we doing? Yeah, and you can totally make this as a mocktail without the gin. It'd still be super delicious. Give me a thumbs up if you're good with the cocktail. Thumbs down if you need another minute or two. All right, cool. I'm gonna set that aside. My water is boiling, so I'm turning it down to low heat. And I'm gonna go ahead. Yeah, Jack Rudy is awesome as well. I love Jack Rudy. Okay, so we got our water that's now simmering. Is everyone's water simmering, or you guys need another minute? Thumbs down if you need more time on the water. Okay, we got a couple thumbs down, so let's give it a second. If your water is not boiling yet, I mean if it is boiling yet, just turn it down to maintain a simmer. And if you are waiting for it to boil, then give it a second at full blast. And in the meantime, we're gonna do our carrots. So we're gonna open up our carrots. These are beautiful overwintered carrots. And in honor of Valentine's Day, I've got this carrot here. I'll show that off. It's a fun little specimen. And what we want to do is we want to just wash these carrots first. They have already been washed, but we just want to give them one more wash just to make double sure that we don't have any dirt. We're going to peel them as well, but it can't hurt to get them washed. Washed up. And now the recipe we're doing, the recipe I wrote calls to peel the carrots, and that's like a nice little touch of elegance that you can show the loved ones in your life that you care the extra mile. You care to go the extra mile. You could totally leave the peel on these. It's totally fine too. But I'm gonna peel them because you know it's Valentine's Day. It's a pandemic. It's a Valentine's Day in pandemic. If we don't have the luxury of a peeled carrot, like what do we have left at all? You know, when I'm trying to evangelize buying local produce from the market, I think a lot about what particular veggies or items from the market are gonna convert people. Because I think if you go to the market and you say, well, I'm going to pay extra for sweet potatoes at the market, and then you try them and you realize that the sweet potatoes you bought aren't actually that much better than the grocery store ones, you probably are going to be turned off from going to the farmer's market. Which is why sweet potatoes are not something that I'm like, you're going to be blown away by how much better the sweet potatoes are. Carrots are a different story. I think carrots are a great gateway drug to the farmer's market because, and I'd encourage you guys to try one of these if you've got a little niblet or something, to try one of these carrots and just taste how much like actual carrot flavor there is relative to just like a regular old grocery store horse carrot. It's incredible. I think carrots are one of those things where you're like, oh wow, things can be better than I thought they could be. So that's a great place to start. Obviously, summer tomatoes is a great place to start. So for folks who are purely shopping at the farmer's market to get things for the flavor, those are great things to start with. Of course, there's lots of reasons to shop at the farmer's market, supporting our local economies, preserving, seed and crop diversity, and autonomy, food system resiliency. Oh my goodness, look at that one. That is the Valentine's Day one. Look at that. Dang. Did I get lucky, or do you guys have freakish carrots too? Who knows? So all this produce today came from Transplanting Traditions, which is an amazing refugee farm in Orange County. It's a farm that primarily serves refugees from Burma. They've had a lot of exciting news recently because the founder, who's a white woman, recently stepped aside to hand the reins over to the second ever after her executive director, who is a young woman from the Karen community, from Burma, which is so cool for an organization that is serving that community to be led by a member of that community as opposed to someone who's not from that community. I think that's really, really incredible. All the produce, because it's a cooperative farm, almost like a community garden farm. There's lots of different farmers there. And so all the produce here was actually grown by 3 or 4 different farmers at Transplanted Traditions, because one of them had the ginger, some of them had some of the carrots, but not all of them. And it really is a cool testament to how that kind of community model can be really successful, really empowering. They've got a CSA that they run, and you can get sort of Western veggies, but they also have a CSA where you can get some Southeast Asian veggies as well, if you're a little more adventurous or like cooking that kind of food. And the last thing I'll say about it is that this Cookalong is a fundraiser for Transplanting Traditions. Folks who have been following Snap, know that I've done a lot. I really love raising funds for Transplanting Traditions, and that's one of my organizations that I love supporting. And so using their produce and then also donating from the proceeds. All right, so did you guys try the carrots? What's the verdict? Do we like them? Meh? Mediocre? Yes, thank you, Kate, for pointing that out. They sell at the Chapel Hill Farmers Market, the midweek Chapel Hill Farmers Market on Tuesdays when that is in season, which it is not right now. And the Carborough Wednesday Market when that is in season, which is also not right now. For right now, they sell at the Carborough Saturday Market. So you can buy their produce there, or you can sign up for the CSA. And it's a nonprofit, you can support them directly if you want. I haven't put the polenta in the water yet because some folks' water wasn't quite at a boil. But as soon as we get these carrots going, we are going to get that. We're going to get that going. We'll add a couple carrots here. The menu for tonight, I wanted to come up with a menu that wasn't too complicated, but that I thought was sort of delicious beyond its how simple it was. Because sort of as I get older, I realize that food doesn't need to be complicated. There's definitely complicated stuff that's delicious, but especially in this space where we're making stuff together that hopefully you guys will be able to make on your own or want to make on your own. I think it's really cool to explore how you can really simply prepare things, doesn't use every pot or pan in the kitchen, and it's, super delicious. All right, my carrots are, you have about twice as many carrots as we do. What's up? We only need 1.5 pounds. Your carrots might be in 2 bags. This is about 1.5 pounds of carrots here. If you don't have about this many carrots, if you've searched your bag, go ahead and send us an email or a direct message, and we can. We won't be able to get it to you in the next 5 minutes, but we can try to make it right. All right, so we got our carrots peeled. We're going to pause on that to add our cornmeal. So our water is at a simmer here. We're going to go ahead and add a big teaspoon of salt to the water. Just like that. I'm going to get my whisk here. And then we're doing about a cup of the cornmeal. I'm using a medium grind cornmeal. Stone ground is great. It's a little more sort of irregular than other kinds of cornmeal, but anything will do, medium cornmeal. And we're just going to go ahead and whisk that into our salted water. And I like to whisk it slowly just to make sure you don't get any lumps. You could absolutely, you know, if in a quick pinch, you could use instant grits or instant polenta. But I think you'll really appreciate the added texture that you get when you make it using whole cornmeal. And if you wanted to have extra, this recipe you could totally double or triple and make a lot and then have it all week. All right, I'm turning my pan up to sort of medium-high heat to wait for that to come back up to a simmer, and then I'll drop it back down. Just like that. All right, and just like that, it's at a simmer, so I'm going down to medium-low and just letting that simmer. If you're done with that, go ahead and have a little cocktail. Oops. Laura is rocking the puns tonight in the chat. If you have not checked them out there, you are missing out. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you're done getting your cornmeal in and you have had a sip of your cocktail. Thumbs down if you need another second. Okay, cool. So then next up, we're gonna go ahead and prep the rest of our carrots. I'm gonna grab a sheet pan here. I'm gonna grab a sheet pan for us to throw them on. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take the tops off, and then we just want these to be in sort of nice, sort of hearty, bite-sized pieces. Amazing. Oh, Julie, what? Oh, that is a good one. That is a good one. All right. So like bite-sized pieces like that, but you can really make them however big you want. You could even leave them whole if you wanted to. This will make for a really nice presentation to have these like rustic, large rustic bite-sized pieces like that. Just trim the ends. You could do these with any color carrot as well, although I think you'll find that orange carrots are actually the tastiest of all carrots. That's what I've found. And that's what science has found too. This recipe, if you had other root veggies that you wanted to include, you could totally do that. If you had some hawk-eye turnips, if you wanted to throw some onions in, if you wanted to put some beets in, celery root, whatever you wanted. This technique of roasting veggies, it's so simple, it's so delicious, it's so easy. If it's a thicker carrot, you might want to go on slightly smaller pieces just so that it cooks at the same time as the thinner carrots. Does anyone know how they get carrots that you buy at the grocery store to all be exactly the same perfect shape and length? Anyone got any guesses how they do that? The way. They grow carrots that are all different shapes and sizes, but this one, a real focus. Any carrots that aren't perfectly shaped and length, they just use for other things. They will use them in coleslaw or other things like that so that they keep the perfect looking ones for you. But we all know that perfection is not the most delicious. All right, so we've got our carrots here. And we're just gonna go ahead and give them a good dressing in olive oil. I would say at least maybe 3 tablespoons or so, like that. And then we're gonna give a nice pinch of salt on them, and a little black pepper. Okay. And then before you get our hands dirty, we cut our carrots a little small on that. Should we separate them from the beans? No, it'll be fine. It's a really, really forgiving recipe. And then now that we've got all that on there, we're gonna go ahead with our beans. 2 cans of white beans. I'm using Great Northern beans, I think. Nope, I'm using cannellini beans. Great Northern or cannellini would be perfect. You could actually use any kind of bean. I just really like white beans on this. What I like to do when I'm opening them is open them almost all the way and then just go ahead and drain them out. We don't have to rinse off all the juice, but we want to get most of the liquid out. There we go. And then we're going to go ahead and dump them on. And I know it's going to look like a lot of beans, but 2 things. 2 things. First one is beans are delicious, and the second thing is we're roasting them, and so they're going to get smaller. Going to give it another little squeeze of olive oil over the beans, and then going to use our little paws to get in there and just mix it up. Just like that. And then sort of spread it into a single even layer. Just like that, all mixed up. Typically when you're roasting things, you want to make sure things are in an even layer. And then you can go ahead and taste a bean, taste a carrot. Does it taste salty enough? Peppery enough? All right, y'all, let's not forget about that, about our polenta here. You really want to watch this like a hawk because it can easily burn. I'm on just very low heat. And I'm just continuing to whisk it so it doesn't stick, doesn't lump up. Just like that. And we're just going to let that sort of slowly simmer throughout the evening until the corn is really tender. All right, give me a thumbs up if you're good to put your sheet pan in. Thumbs down if you need another second. Lots of thumbs up. All right, sheet pan is going in. Sheet pan is going in. All right, I'm going to use this perfect opportunity to tidy up a little bit. My parents who are participating in the cook-along this evening, they can testify that I've always been an exceptionally tidy cook my whole life. Probably one of their favorite things about me, how tidy of a cook I am. Perfect use for my last bag of RG Royal Coronas. I don't even know what that means. Start eating it. 400 degrees, you got it. Oh, Rancho Gordos. Oh, yeah. Yum. All right. This is that moment in cooking the meal where all of the things that are going to take a while to cook are going. We got the carrots in, we got the polenta here. And so now is sort of a moment that we can breathe. We got the stuff that's going to take a while, and now we can sort of take our time with the rest of the stuff. Tidy up, make sure we're good. So next up, what we're going to do is we're going to toast our nuts. If you're using toasted untoasted nuts, you should definitely toast them. And if you're using pre-toasted nuts, which is okay. I like to just toast them a little bit. It sort of brings them back to life just a little bit. So we're using about a half a cup. I'm using almonds, but if you want to use another nut, that's totally fine. About a half a cup of those. And we're just going to go ahead and stick those in here. And Laura, would you set a timer for us for about, let's say, 3 minutes for the folks who are already using toasted nuts, and then we can go a little longer if you're toasting from raw? Thank you. All right, we got our nuts going. Now we're gonna do our salsa verde. To do our salsa verde, we need our verdes, which is gonna be our parsley and our scallions. If you want, you can go ahead and put your Swiss chard, your kale, and your salad mix in the fridge, because those are just treats for you guys to enjoy the rest of the week. We're not gonna use them tonight. So, I'm gonna use a blender, but you can use a food processor if you prefer. Either one's fine. And you can even use a mortar and pestle, the old-fashioned way, if you want. I'm stirring my grits here, my polenta. Ooh, here's a good question. Does anyone know the difference between grits and polenta? All right, y'all. While you guys are pondering that, I'm gonna go ahead and whack the roots off of my scallions here. And then I'm gonna save just a little handful of them like this for later. We can garnish with that. And the rest of them, I'm just gonna pick off any brown bits, and then I'm gonna go for the rinse because there might be a little dirt in there. Size of the grinder. They're spelled differently. They are spelled differently. They're called different things. They are. There is no difference besides that they're called different things. They're the same thing. They are not hominy. They're not treated with lye. It is just whether you live in the South or you live in Italy or you want to seem fancy. All right, I am going to go ahead and chop these up. They're getting blended, so you don't have to chop them super well, but they're just easier in the blender if you do that. Yeah, one is fancy, exactly. And then the parsley, you know, if we wanted to be fancy, we could like pick every leaf off. I don't really want to be fancy, so I'm just going to cut off the hardy stems here. Yep, I'm chopping the spring onions, the scallions. Just got chopped and put in the blender or the food processor. And then the top of the parsley. And the parsley, again, I'm just going to run my knife really quickly through it. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just helps the blender. All right, so we've got our bunch of scallions and our parsley in here. I'm gonna take a little bit more of that ginger, just to sort of tie the meal through, and I'm gonna microplane it in here. Maybe a teaspoon of ginger. Again, this is totally up to what you like in the heat. We're doing all the scallions, the whole scallion, well, minus the root. I set aside a little bit of the scallions for garnish. Did about a teaspoon of ginger here. Check your almonds, thank you. All right, my almonds were raw, so they need another 4 minutes, but if your almonds were previously toasted, they may be ready to come out. You're just looking for them to be a little golden, smell a little toasty. And while we're checking our almonds, let's check our grits, which for me, mine are tightening up. And so I'm gonna add a little bit of water to them. Just a splash of water. There's not a science here. We just want to keep them loose enough that they can keep cooking. They'll get thicker over time and then we can thin them out. We just don't want to add too much water all at once and then end up with grits that are polenta that's too thin. Add about maybe a half a cup of water, something like that. Get them on just low heat here. 1 bunch of parsley in the blender. And then we're gonna add some capers, which I would encourage you, even if you don't like capers, to try adding some capers. You could even add a reduced amount. But capers are traditional for like an Italian salsa verde, and they add a really nice kind of brininess here. So we want to add 2 or 3 tablespoons. We don't want to add a lot of the juice. If a little juice gets in there, it's totally fine. But we're not going for a super juicy situation. And then we're gonna add the juice of a lemon, which we could just use the rest of that lemon, or you can open up a new lemon. Just a couple tablespoons of lemon juice. You know, the quantities of these are intentionally flexible because bunches of parsley are different sizes. The flavors you like are different. Some people like things more acidic or less acidic. I like the idea that we can make things and then try them and see how we like them and say we want it a little more acidic, a little sweeter, we want a little this or that. If you wanted to add a little lemon zest in there to make it a little more lemony, you totally could do that. So we've got our bunch of scallions in here. Got our parsley in here, we've got some capers, a little grated ginger, some lemon juice, minus that seed that I see. Snuck in somehow. And we've got a cocktail in our hand. Oh yeah. Delish. And then we're gonna go ahead and blend it up. And we might not quite get gin and juice. We're not going to get totally blended just now, but we want to get partially blended before we start adding olive oil, because the olive oil has all of these flavorful volatile compounds. All of the things that give olive oil its delicious bitter and fruity flavor, those are volatile compounds, and if those are busted up by a blender, they can sometimes get too bitter. So we're just going to go ahead and blend this a little bit. It might not come all the way together, but we're just sort of chopping it a little bit. And then once it's chopped a little bit, we can stream in a little bit of olive oil. And you'll see that it'll sort of come together slowly. You can pause it and take a spoon to scrape down the edges of the blender bowl. I'm going to add a pinch of salt because we haven't added any salt yet. Grits a stir. And then back in the blender we go. A little more olive oil. And that's it. I like to leave it a little bit chunky. Ooh, check our almonds. All right, my almonds are done. So I'm pulling my almonds out. I really like to leave my salsa verde a little on the chunky side, but you can make it as smooth as you want. If you've blended it with the olive oil, it should get a little bit creamy, like a little bit white almost, because that's the olive oil emulsifying with the lemon juice, with the water in it. If you like it a little thinner, you can add a little bit of water. If you like it a little bit more sour and a little thinner, you can add some more lemon juice. If you like it thicker or richer, you can add some more olive oil. This is a really sort of starting point recipe. You could do it with red wine vinegar instead of lemon. You could do it with cilantro and tarragon. You get the idea here. We took some greens, we added some acid, we emulsified in some fat. That's as simple as it is. So taste it. Mmm. Mmm. Yum. That is my jam. If you like it smoother, go all the way to smooth. I really like to see little flecks of the herbs in there. I think it's really beautiful and flavorful. You get some texture. I can only imagine how annoying this is to hear me scraping my blender. Just gonna pull it out. Add about a 1/4 cup of olive oil. You can add as much as you need to get to where you want. Stirring my polenta here. Adding another splash of water. Just like that. And there we go. So just to review what we've got right now in our oven, we've got our carrots with our white beans. You can see the white beans are starting to crack open and start to dry out. Maybe get a little bit of color. Our polenta is cooking away. It should by now have thickened up, but that doesn't mean it's done. The thickening just means that the free starches from the grinding have absorbed liquid. That doesn't mean that the actual kernels of corn have fully cooked through. And so we're going to continue cooking that low and slow until those cook through, and that'll give us a really beautiful texture. And then we've got our salsa verde, this beautiful salty, sour, fresh green sauce. One of my favorite condiments. And I mean, you can throw this on a bowl of rice and it's delicious. So I'm just going to set that to the side right here. Ready to go. And we've got our almonds that have now been nicely toasted. We're going to let those cool for a few minutes and then we can chop them up. In the meantime, well, let me check in. How we feel? Thumbs up if we're with me, thumbs down if we need a little more time. A lot of thumbs up. Can I just say, you guys look amazing. You guys all look amazing tonight. Happy Valentine's Day. You guys look amazing. Yes, let's check our carrots, make sure those are doing all right, not browning unevenly. Stirring, we're cleaning our board. Getting the little carrot peels, getting them in the compost. Boom, boom, bada bing, bada boom. We're sliding the spoon that we spilled, that we dropped on the ground to the side so no one knows. And we're having more cocktail. Cocktail number 2. I don't know if that's a request or that's a statement that this is your second cocktail of the day. Yum. All right, y'all, it's time to make our salad. Move into wine. All right, let's grab our celery here. And we are going to make an incredible celery salad that is inspired. It's basically the celery salad that Joshua McFadden published in his first cookbook, which is just so incredible and simple. I love it so much that I tweaked it a little bit, but it's pretty as is. Now, celery that comes from a real local farmer that's growing sustainably is going to be a little dirtier, messier than if you get the perfect stalks from the grocery store, but it's going to have way more flavor. Totally worth it. If we have 2 small bunches of celery, yeah, you should use both. If you have 2 smaller ones, definitely use both. So what I'm going to do, the way I like to do this, is I like to start by chopping off just a little bit from the bottom to sort of release all of these. And if you're lucky, you may have a little slug with you for Valentine's Day. Because slugs have love too. All right, but you can see it's pretty dirty inside. And so we want to make sure that we give it a good rinse. I'm actually going to give it 2 rinses. I'm going to give it a rinse right now, and then I'm going to give it another rinse after we have it prepped up. pass here. We had a slug too. Woo. Can we eat? Yeah, you can eat. You can eat the slug. Extra protein. Okay, so what we want to do with the celery is, oh, I definitely love the compost smell. What we want to do is we want to pull off any of the big, tough, dark leaves, okay? And I'm distinguishing that between leaves like this, which are lighter green, they're more tender, and those can stay. But the big dark ones like this, these huge leaves, those are going to be a little astringent and bitter and tough for this particular salad. If you want, you can totally save them and put them in stock because they'll have great celery flavor with that, without having to buy any additional celery. I also wanted to say, if you're feeding more people than 2 tonight, and you want more salad than this, of course you could just throw in some of the salad greens or the kale from the rest of the box, but you could also use the Swiss chard, because Swiss chard has celery-like stalks that can be eaten raw. And so that could be a great way to stretch this if you want even more salad. Or if you want to make this salad again later this week and don't have any more delicious local celery around. All right, so we're just picking off our big old leaves. We're stirring our grits, our polenta. Sean Brock is a chef. He's a chef in the South who mostly works in Charleston. He makes a lot of grits, and he has a rule in his restaurant that basically any chef who walks by a pot that's of grits that are cooking has to stir it. Because it's one of those things that, you know, if everyone just sort of stirs it when they walk by, you don't have to worry about it too much. But if no one's paying attention to it, then you're gonna be in trouble. All right, so now, y'all, we should have a sort of a handful of stalks of celery like this. And this is when we're going to give it another rinse, because those leaves sort of got in the way of us really getting rinsed. I still see some dirt, so we're going to give it one more rinse here. And you might even want to go stalk by stalk to really make sure each one is nicely rinsed, because all those like grooves and cracks, it holds on to dirt, and we don't want dirt. The slugs are fine, but the dirt has to go. You might also see some stalks that are a little bit brown or discolored. That's natural when you're growing things in an organic or non-certified organic garden. You're going to get that happening. Just want to get as much of that off. I'm going to shake off all the water. Then we're going to come back to our cutting board. I've got my bowl here that we're now going to chop our celery into. So what we want to do for the celery is we want to thinly slice it on the diagonal so that we get nice long pieces like that. That's what we're going for. These are maybe 2 inches or so long, and it'll give really great texture to the salad. And you can go all the way to the tip. And then if you get good, you can actually do a couple of these stalks at the same time. Just line them up next to each other. Do a couple. And you'll have some pieces that maybe are a little bit bigger than others, and that's okay. Just make sure that you're using a good sharp knife and that you're really going through them, because you can pretty easily end up with pieces that are actually sort of still a little bit attached. This piece is a little brown, so I'm going to compost that. If you haven't yet, you should definitely try the celery. I think you'll be delighted in its flavor. Oop, time to check the grits. Time for another splash of water. And adding another, maybe, I don't know, half a cup of water or so. Taking a peek at the carrots. They should be starting to brown ever so slightly. The salad is going to have, it's going to be a really delicious salad that gets some richness and crunch from these almonds, and it also gets some sweetness from some dates. I was talking to a friend about the menu for the Cookalong earlier today, and they said, oh, so it's basically ants on a log in salad form. I was like, what? They're like, well, peanuts or nuts, dates are basically raisins, and you're making ants on a log. No, it's like, what? So yeah, it's ants on a log salad. Liquid in the sheet pan from the beans. By this point, there should not be too much liquid on the pan. I'm going to show you what mine looks like here. So you can see we're starting to get a little bit of browning, and this is a great time to go through with a spatula and just scrape it up, because the bottom might be browning a little bit more than the top. The beans are getting crusty, the carrots are starting to get a little color. Just give it a shake to get it even again before it goes back in. And while we're here, go ahead and try a carrot and see how it's doing on tenderness. Mine is in a really great place where it's tender, crisp, but I actually don't have as much color as I would like on the pan. So I'm going to make a little adjustment here. I think that's probably because some of the carrots were a little bit more slender than I was expecting. So they got tender a little bit more quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drizzle with a little more olive oil, just to sort of re-lubricate. And then I'm going to crank my oven up to 500 degrees. You know your oven better than I do, and so if you feel like your carrots aren't even close to tender yet, or if they're browning too quickly, you don't have to do that. But I'm going to crank my oven up because what I want is I want them to brown more quickly without overcooking. And that you get that by turning the temperature up. It's those kinds of little adjustments that I think are really important when you're learning to cook or you're growing as a chef, to say, what am I going for here, and what adjustments can I make to sort of optimize for that? All right, we got the last of our celery here. Just gonna slice through this last little bit here. Bada bing, bada boom. I've got these little bits of tender leaves that I had saved that I'm just going to sort of pick off directly in there. I think the leaves are such a gorgeous addition to bring a little bit more texture and celery flavor. There you go. All right, we got a nice pile here of sliced celery. How are we doing? Give me a thumbs up if you're with me on the celery. Thumbs down if you need a little more time. Looks like Mary's doing good. Up in New York, what's the stalk to leaf ratio? Honestly, I would put as many leaves in here as you get of the baby tender one. So I would say the amount of leaves that I have total is like, that I got from mine, because most of them were these tougher ones, is like this sort of small handful kind of thing. But honestly, leaves like this, what we call blanched, where leaves like this have been covered by, they haven't gotten a lot of light, and so the chlorophyll in them hasn't developed, so they stay really tender and blonde. This is like my favorite part of the celery. because it's tender, it's sweet, a little bit bitter. It's so delicious. I love it so much. So the leaves, I would put as many leaves in here as you have of those tender blonde ones. Okay, that goes aside. By now, our nuts should be cool enough that we can chop them. So I'm gonna throw them there. And I'm just gonna run my knife through them. It's really a good idea to toast raw nuts whole. Buy whole nuts, toast them whole, and then chop them. Not only do you get more sort of irregular, kind of rustic pieces of them, but also, all right. So I'm going so that the almonds are maybe each almond is roughly into sort of quarters or so. You don't have to go almond by almond, but just sort of roughly. But what I was gonna say is the other reason you want to toast whole nuts instead of pre-chopped nuts is because when you chop nuts, there's always a little bit of sort of nut dust, the little tiny bits that have gotten over chopped. And if you toast nuts that have that nut dust with them, that dust is going to overcook. It's going to overcook a little too quickly relative to the rest of the nuts, and so that'll burn before the rest of the nuts are fully toasted. So you always want to toast whole nuts and then chop them after. And you always want to toast a couple nuts more than you need so you have snack. Freshly toasted nuts are so delicious. All right, we're stirring our polenta vigorously. Checking our carrots, make sure we're not getting too much browning. And then I'm gonna go ahead and taste my polenta and just see where we're at in terms of how cooked the actual grain is. If you're using stone ground grits or polenta or cornmeal, you'll notice there's still a toothsomeness to it. Like there is still texture. We're not trying to cook all of the texture out, but it shouldn't have any like raw or floury taste, which mine is totally there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and keep stirring it to make sure nothing is sticking, it's not getting in the corners of the pot. And I'm gonna bask in the glory of perfectly cooked grits. Polenta, excuse me. We're fancy. All right. Got a couple more things to do before we are home free. Now that we turned our oven temperature up, we gotta keep a real eye on our carrots because now it's super hot in there, we don't want them to burn. While we're waiting on those, I'm gonna take exactly 6 dates. 7 if you're feeling extra. And we're just gonna roughly chop them. These dates are already pitted. If they are not pitted, I would suggest you pit them before you chop them. All right, it's time for another round of trivia. What kind of plant does a date grow on? A date tree. It is a date tree. And Heather gets it. It's a type of palm tree. If you've ever seen a palm tree that has the sort of clusters of like little things on the, like little, well, large yellow date looking things, that is what it is, a date palm. So we're doing 6 dates, and you know what? I'm looking at this and I'm saying, I need 2 more dates. I need 2 more dates. Surprised Laura has not made a pun yet about cooking dates on Valentine's Day. She's probably working up something good. All right, so I've got my exactly 8 dates in here. And then next up, what are we doing next? Next up, we are going to add our lemon juice. So we're going to grab 1 more lemon. We're going to roll it. We forgot to grab dates. Thinking dried cranberries. You can do dried cranberries. I probably wouldn't do if they've been sweetened. just because they can be a little overly sweet, but raisins would work. This was gonna be our first date too. Oh. But if cranberries are the dried fruit you've got, totally go with that. But you could do apricots, you could do raisins, whatever. All right, so we're gonna add the juice of 1 lemon in here now. Guess we gotta be careful with the seeds because they look like chopped almonds in here. Boom. Boom. All right, we got the juice of the lemon. We have checking our carrots. Carrots are getting nicely browned now. I'm going to give them another toss. You can see by turning the heat up, if you turn your temperature up, you can see how much quicker they brown. Back in the oven for another few minutes till we're ready for them. What expired me? All right, I will answer Rick and Beth. I'll answer your question in a few minutes. I want to get the rest of this wrapped up real quick. So next up, we're going to add some salt, pepper to our salad. A little pinch of salt, not too much. We can always add more, and some pepper. We're going to add some olive oil, maybe 3 or so tablespoons to it. You can always add more. If you like it spicy, add a pinch of red pepper flakes, which I do. I love seeing everyone's kitchens, everyone moving around quickly now that we're in high gear finishing. And then we're going to take some parm, and using a vegetable peeler, we're going to peel off some shavings of it. We want nice big shavings, because when we toss them, they'll get crumbled up a little bit. So we want to start with nice big pieces here. We're doing about 2 ounces or so. Now let's grab a big spoon and stir it up and see what we got. If you're using nice aged Parmesan Reggiano, it should be nice and kind of crumbly. Crumble with the salad. You can use your spoon to break it up a little bit. Just like that. And then go ahead and give it a taste. Might need a little more salt, a little more pepper, and another pinch of red pepper flakes. Just like that. That's perfect. We're adding about 2 ounces of parm, but really you want to add parm until it looks like there's a nice, there's a nice distribution of parm. This is what my salad looks like. I was not sold after the ants on the log, but this is really tasty. I should have saved that till after everyone tasted the salad. All right, our salad is done. Our salsa verde is done. We're gonna go ahead and pull out our. Carrots and our white beans, and we're gonna add our feta here. I'm using this beautiful goat milk feta that's coming from Boxcar Handmade Cheese up in Cedar Grove. Next to a lot of fire. All right, so we're gonna take some of this beautiful feta, and we're just gonna crumble it over the top. It might sizzle a little bit because there'll be some moisture hitting it. And you can add as much feta as you want. I'm gonna just sort of crumble enough to get a nice even coating on it. You might not need the full half pound, and that's okay. If you really like feta, you can go nuts and add as much as you want. Just like that. texture should the carrots be? Not sure if mine are in there. There's no right texture. What I'm looking for, what I really like, is for them to be a little bit, have a little crispness to them still. To be, you know, tender crisp. I'm gonna put a little bit more olive oil right over the feta, which will help it brown. And then it's gonna go back in the oven on the top shelf. We don't need to broil it, but we are just gonna go ahead and sort of melt the feta. And while that is finishing, we can go ahead and finish our grits, our polenta, excuse me. So, for the polenta, actually, you guys with me? Thumbs up if you're with me, thumbs down if you need another second. All right, couple thumbs down. So we're gonna hold off. Tie up. And while we're doing that, I will answer, we had a question earlier. What inspired me to create these experiences? Rick and Beth, you talking about specifically the Cookalong experiences or pop-ups in general, or these recipes? I guess I'll just start answering those. The Cookalongs in particular were started during the pandemic when we weren't able to do our pop-ups, and we wanted to be able to support our farmers, bring cool food experiences to you guys, our community, stay connected. And I feel like people were looking for fun things to do. It's crazy to think that that was now almost 2 years ago. I mean, we're all saying that about the pandemic. So, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were doing these every single week. And I think for a lot of us, myself included, it was something that we really looked forward to every week because it was something to do, it was something to look forward to, and an endless sea of nothingness. And then over the course of the past couple of years, as in-person events have picked back up for us, and as you know, we all are doing other fun things, we've slowed down a little bit. And so now we're mostly doing them for sort of special occasions, for Valentine's Day and Father's Day, and here and there, as we need until we can get back to our pop-ups. Which I'll just say we're hoping to be back for an in-person pop-up in April when the weather is a little nicer. Although if the weather was like it was on Saturday, then we can do it right now. Assuming there's not a new variant situation. We want both. All right. All right, so now we're gonna finish the grits up here. Finish the grits here. I'm gonna use about 4 tablespoons of butter. You could use less butter if you want, and it will be proportionally less delicious. Or you can use the full 4 tablespoons and it's gonna be proportionally more delicious. So we're gonna add 4 tablespoons of butter, and then we're gonna grate in some Parmesan Reggiano, the same one that we were using in the salad. You know, I really love you guys, those of you guys who have done Cookalongs with me, and done pop-ups with me know I really love to use layers of flavor and to say we've got lemon in a couple dishes, we've got ginger in the cocktail and in the Salsa Verde, we've got parm in multiple things. I think it adds to the cohesiveness of a meal to do that. So now we're gonna add our parm. If you want, you can grate it on a solid surface and then add it. We're gonna have about 2 ounces of here. But again, just add as much as you want. It will be proportionally, it'll be exactly as delicious as how much parm and butter you add. And save a little parm because we're gonna want to top with a little parm too. All right, that looks good. Little parm snack. I'm gonna go ahead and add that beautiful cloud of parm right in. It's nice to add the richness from the butter and the cheese, but you'll notice that the flavor of the corn will still be the star here. butter I'm using is beautiful cultured pasture-raised butter. What do we do with the almonds? The almonds got chopped and added to the celery salad. We are checking our carrots. That's feta. This can use another minute or two, but if you we're whisking our polenta. And then now let's go ahead and taste our polenta one last time to make sure we're good on salt. I don't like to add pepper to my polenta. You totally can if you want. I really like that it doesn't have any, it just feels like salty and rich and delicious. Yum. And this is also a great time that you can adjust the texture. If you want it a little thinner, I'm going to throw like a tablespoon of water in just to get it a little bit thinner. But that's going to depend on how much water you added before and how much you cooked out. Give it a good whisk. All right. My oven, I'm turning my oven off. I'm pulling my carrots out. The tips of the carrots are beautifully charred. This is what my sheet pan looks like. You can see there's bits of charred carrot. The feta is starting to brown. If yours doesn't look like that, I would leave it in the oven for another few minutes. And I'm not gonna toss it all up because I want that feta to sort of stay on the top. But, you know, feta in so many contexts, feta is always a sort of cool, salty, refreshing element. In this, by putting it on and then returning it to the oven, I wanted the feta to get a little toasty, a little warm, a little melty, because I thought it would sort of meld together the whole dish and leave that sort of salty brininess to the salsa verde, so they could sort of play together, just like that. So now that our components are done, I think it's time for us to plate up here. I'm gonna straight out my whisk or a spoon, and I'm just gonna make a single portion here instead of plating them up each in a bowl. Although you could plate it up however you want. But what I'm gonna do a portion here. I'm gonna take a nice, beautiful scoop of this gorgeous soft polenta, like that. I'm just sticking it, just sort of smooth it out on the bottom of the bowl. Maybe a little bit more. Like that. And then I'm going to take some of these charred carrots and white beans with the feta, and I'm going to be careful to try and leave them in a sort of like little pile like that. So the feta is still on top. Get some more of those crispy white beans, that feta, just like that. So you have this gorgeous little like nest for all your roasted carrots and your salsa verde. And then we're just gonna finish it with a little bit of this salsa verde, just drizzled over the top. Those beautiful chunks of whole herbs in there, like that. We've got these green onions left that I'm just gonna run a knife through. Finally, as a garnish. Garnish on the top like that, and then it's Valentine's Day, so let's give it one more hit of fresh Parmesan Reggiano, just like that. And another little drizzle of olive oil. There you have it. That's what my perfect bowl looks like, just like that. I would suggest that you guys eat this Italian style, meaning eat your main first, and then eat your salad afterwards. Because the polenta, unless it's kept warm, it'll start to cool off. It'll seize up and it'll get thicker, which is no problem. You can heat it back up. You can add a little bit more water, totally fine. But you don't want it to sit in your bowl for 20 minutes while you're enjoying your salad. So, where's my cocktail? I want to go over a couple more things. Review plating. All right. On the bottom, we've got a nice big dollop of our soft polenta. On top, we have a nice sort of shovel scoopful of our white beans and our charred carrots. Then we've just drizzled a little bit of our salsa verde right on top. Finished it with some sliced scallions, a little bit more of the Parmesan Reggiano, and a little drizzle of olive oil on top to bring that together. But you know what? It's all going to the same place. You can plate it however you want. We've got our salad with our crunchy celery, our crunchy almonds, our salty parm, a little bit of kick from the red pepper, and the sweetness of the dates all coming together. I think that's lovely. And then I want to give a shout out to everyone who ordered the pastry box. Thank you so much. It is projects like this that help me keep an amazing pastry chef on the Snappy team, even when things are a little bit slower. We're so excited to have Raven Camp, our pastry chef, on the team since last year. And this was a really cool project. I basically said, let's do pastry boxes. They can be whatever you want. So she came up with everything on it, and I couldn't be happier with what she came up with. And I hope you guys enjoy that too. We're gonna take about a 2-minute break here to let you guys finish what you're doing and settle down. If you guys want to hang out for a little bit of Q&A afterward, I'll be back in about 2 minutes or 3 minutes or so, and we can sit together. But you are welcome to take off and have your beautiful romantic Valentine's Day dinner meal together. A couple quick announcements. You should already be, if you purchased your registration for the Cookalong, you should be on our mailing list already. But if you aren't, you should join our mailing list, and then you'll hear about future Cookalongs and pop-ups, that kind of thing. A shout out to Transplanting Traditions, which is that Burmese refugee farm that this produce came from and that we're supporting tonight. Definitely check them out at Market, and I'll put a link to their farm in our follow-up email. Speaking of which, you'll get a follow-up email tomorrow that has a link to the recording of this if you want to check back. It'll have a PDF of the recipes in case yours is covered in lemon juice or whatever. And it'll also have a feedback survey. We'd love to get your feedback so that we can make future cook-alongs even better for you. And it'll also have some ideas of what to do with that leftover produce that's in your fridge to enjoy the rest of the week. So for those of you who are taking off, thank you so much for being here this evening. And for those who are sticking around, I will see you in 2 minutes. Make sure to think of your questions that you want to talk about. Thanks, y'all. See you in a sec.